Good morning, Angela. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Sharon? Good to.
Okay, dear. So we're here for Reasons for Women's Truths, and you're one of the coaches in the group. And please introduce yourself to the world.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me in the group. I'm grateful. Um, so my name is Angela Mitchell. I'm from the United States. From the southern tip of the United States. I'm a physician by training. I did surgical. I'm a surgical subspecialist. And one of the things that brought me to coaching is, I've experienced navigating a lot of spaces that were initially not set up for women, from an immigrant family, going into medicine, going into surgical subspecialties. And interestingly enough, I was one of the 8th women to graduate my program. So that space was not something where they were comfortable with women in that space. So it was, we were some of the guinea pigs there, I will say. Academic medicine is here in the States is very male dominated in general. And I was in academic medicine until 2020. That's after training as well. And so, I've been in many spaces that have mainly been occupied by men in the past, and it can be uncomfortable for women to navigate it because we are different than men. And I think because we're slowly seeing more women in these spaces, it's important for us to be able to navigate them with authenticity. And that's something where I find that coaching can be helpful. And I think that, as women, our psyches are different, like I mentioned. And even though it can be seen otherwise, I don't think that's a weakness. I really believe that because we are different, that we can bring a different perspective to a lot of these spaces. And that perspective will help a lot of people. In fact, women are 50% of the population. And we also, for example, for what I see, like we navigate healthcare on a regular basis, obviously. So it's important to have women in boardrooms, it's in politics and healthcare. So that's where I feel like I, as a coach, can be helpful since I've navigated a lot of these spaces, not always successfully, but I have navigated them and seen those pressures. For example, as a example in medicine, there have been a lot of studies that have been shown that patients are cared for by female physicians and even surgeons have better results. So there is a touch that we're providing in this space that is helpful to the population. And so that's where I have sort of turned to coaching as I've gotten my own coaching, but also turned into a coach for women who are navigated some of these spaces. And I'm hoping that I can help women, live more authentically and bring something more to these spaces that we really do need. Yeah, so that's kind of my story.
What made you want to be a doctor?
I have had to reflect on that a lot in my life. I really do enjoy helping people. And I, even to this day, feel like what I do as a career, I have a lot of purpose in. And so I enjoy it. I enjoy having that connection with people. I deal with kids, but I enjoy having that connection with adults, with their parents, knowing that I'm going to try to help them. And then the satisfaction of making a diagnosis and being like, this is what's been happening. And, this is how we fix it. It's the practice of medicine. So there's not always a perfect fix, but, educating people on a disease or a diagnosis and then how to guide them through it to me, feels very fulfilling. So I think those are the reasons that I always joke that I would have either been a doctor or a teacher because I also like educating people. But that's truly, I think, why I liked medicine to begin with, and that's why I chose it.
How do you cope with, obviously we can't cure everybody in this world. How do you cope with when you can't cure a child?
Yeah, I mean, that's hard. There's a lot of diagnoses that we deal with in my field where there isn't a perfect solution. Or sometimes there isn't really a solution, but really managing of symptoms. I don't, when you say cope,
Personally, I mean personally, and not as a doctor, because being a mother, it reflects on you sometimes. And when you go home, you bring it with you. I don't believe you leave it in the office. So how do you, Angela, cope with that?
I don't think it's easy. It's, you want to be able to separate that, like your professional life with what's happening at the office to what's happening at home, but it doesn't always happen that way. I cope with it knowing that I try my hardest to do what I can to make their life better. And sometimes it's not in my control, and it can be hard.
Who does Angela talk to when she has, when she's put in that lonely position of not being able to help someone?
Yeah. So I do a lot of reflection. So I'm one of those people that has an inner dialogue going on at times when I have to process things. So I talk to myself for one thing. But I'm lucky. I have a spouse who is supportive and can usually hear me out. Sometimes he tries to fix it or fix my perspective, and that's not really what I want, but usually he will at least listen, which is helpful. I also am lucky in that I have a lot of colleagues that I trust and can be vulnerable with. They've become friends. So those are the sort of the people that I usually move to talk to because they've been in similar situations. I think it helps to have people who've been in your shoes. And that's, I think that helps a lot because they can give me a perspective where if they've been through it, how they coped with it, or a perspective of maybe sometimes treatment planning, something I didn't think of or things like that. So those are the people I turn to.
And I'm interested in how the children react to their illness and how do they cope being so young or not being mature enough maybe to understand why they're sick. How do you help them that way?
So what's really interesting about kids, depending on when they're diagnosed, some kids are diagnosed at birth with abnormalities. And what's interesting about those kids is they don't know any different. So really in that scenario, it's helping parents deal with the diagnosis. And when they're older, I would say late elementary to older, and they have a better understanding of something's not right. I try to give them information because I think that can be I think that education is very important. But a lot of times if it's a chronic condition, I can only do so much. And I try to help them with, giving them resources to help cope with the diagnosis, especially when they're teenagers. I think that's very important that they have someone to process that with.
I understand when you opened up about life coaching. Why at this point in your life? You're young, you have many years to stay a doctor. I understand you want to incorporate, but why at this point in your life?
It's funny you said that I'm young. I feel like I'm finally old enough where I could actually do this. Does that make sense? I feel like I've been thinking about coaching for a while because there's been a lot of stuff that I've gone through over the past, I would say, 7 to 8 years. A lot of the big transitions that have occurred in my life with some of the stuff I talked about have occurred in the past 7 to 8 years. So when I thought about this, I would say about 5 years ago, I was like, I feel like I have life experience, but I don't have enough where I could really say my experience could help somebody else, and I could actually coach someone. So I finally feel like I got to the point in my life experience where I could where I actually could help somebody, and that's why I pursued coaching. I know I have many years left in my primary career, and I'm going to continue that. But at some point, I feel like since I've been kind of thinking about doing this for so long, at some point I felt like, what, I really feel like I'm ready, because I've been playing with the idea for 5 years. And so even though I have my primary career as a physician available, and I can continue doing that for probably 20 more years, if we're being honest, I still think that I felt like this is something that's calling to me. And if not now, when? So I just made time for it.
Okay. Now let's talk about Women for Women's Truth. Why did you want to belong?
When I met you through the coaching groups, and you were talking about it, I felt like your mission was something that aligned with my mission, in that you wanted to help women. And I think that because the values were aligned, I felt drawn to, talk to you about it a little bit more and see what you guys were doing. I think it's so important, like I mentioned before, when you have somebody who's been through similar things, it's easier to take their perspective on a situation. I think that's exactly why women, exactly why women need to help other women, because we've been in similar situations. In many cultures and societies, women are socialized differently than their male counterparts. And that means we face different challenges throughout our lives. And so I think it's important, as part of the sisterhood of women, that we reach out to other women and help them, because I think we have the best tools to do that. And so, I respected and valued what you were trying to accomplish, and I still do. And that's why I wanted to see if I could be a part of it. And I'm just excited that you sort of allowed me to do that.
Where do you think this group is going?
I don't know. I hope it's going to find a lot of women who need different perspectives to get them out of situations that they are not happy in. I hope it's going towards reaching so many, like all corners of the earth, hopefully, and helping women find their voices when they have lost them, their self-worth if they can't find it, or just their happiness if they've lost it. So that's where I hope it's going. And I think with so many coaches that we have that all have different strengths in our group, I just think that if someone were to come to you and say, this is what I'm struggling with, it would be so easy for any one of us to be like, I may not be able to help you with that, but I have somebody who can. And I just think that resource is so important. Because it can be very hard to initially be that person that asks for help. But if you reach out to somebody who's got the resources to help you, whether it's, their own coaching or somebody else or from somebody else, I think I think that can be a superpower for this group.
And if Angela could do anything with WFWT, what would she do with it? Anything she wants.
That's such a good question. Well, if the world was my oyster, let's see. If I could do anything with it, I have all these ideas popping into my head. And
Go ahead, say them all. It's okay.
I just want to think of the one that I'm going to, really hope for and manifest. I think as a mother, I feel for the women who have children and maybe not voices in their lives. So if it could do anything, not that women without children aren't worth helping, obviously, but we all are worth helping. But I would love for it to reach the women who have who have kids and they don't have voices in their lives for whatever reason. That they're not. I felt like I hit a place after I had my kids where I was very trapped in my work environment, and I felt so helpless. And I know women routinely feel that in different situations. And so if this good group could do anything, because the way that helplessness affects a woman's helplessness affects families is huge. And if this group could help those women who just feel helpless, with or without kids, actually, that would be, even if it could help like 1,000 women who were helpless, that'd be amazing. If I were to set a goal, I would say, let's help them all. Because that's a very difficult feeling.
The challenge is, Angela, is that a lot of women probably who eventually, when we go live, which in the new year we will, it's unaffordable and unattainable to them. So as coaches, one has to decide sometimes, do we help anyways? What would you do?
I think I and many other women in this group, because they feel passionate about helping, would help. I think they would help. Even if the financial means were not there.
Thank you for that. Because I'm one of those women. And I understand when some of them aren't financial reasons, I guess. So, but, sometimes we, when we are successful, I believe that we have to pay back to society who made us successful. And I know most people never do that. And I think more of us did, especially women. There'd be less women struggling in this world. And that's what this group is all about. Would you like to say anything else before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I know part of that is also purpose, right? Many of us live life and we may not know what our purpose is. I think when you have the capability of helping and giving back to your community in any way, whether it's your local community, whether it's the community of women, whether it's, whatever it is. And I think when you have that ability, it's great if you're able to do it because it also gives you a sense of purpose and just, sense of, I guess, that you're doing something for somebody else. So that's also another way of looking at it when you are helping somebody who may not have the financial ability to get these services on their own.
I think it's, for me, it's very difficult in times like today, especially North America, which is one of the richest continents in the world, that children go hungry, uneducated. Some women have no means at all, food stamps or beg for food or go for, I just think it's, forget about their mental state, right? So between that and coping and that's not an easy place to be in 2025. So we hope with this group that if we can just help one and then two and then three and then four, it would be amazing. And I thank you for this journey and I thank you for being with us. And I will see you on the podcast.
That sounds great.
And
Thank you.
next
Thank you
webinar.
for your time today.
Take care. Thank you again.
All right, you too. Bye. Absolutely. Bye, Sherry.
Bye-bye.